having me here today. I understand Pat's in Virginia interviewing for a full ride scholarship. That's exciting. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate so much your advisors' work for the club, for the society. I appreciate Principal Morrell's great work in the community and all. And we've got one of my former staffers, Gary, was with me in Washington, heading our legislative affairs. And we've also got the leader of the group that comes to Washington with us and brings our young students from College Park up there. So good to see you all. Excited about being here today. Our family is in the College Park zone. My son Will be a freshman here next year. I'm not sure we're ready for that, but he's excited about it. We did one of the things, we've been in Congress representing you guys for quite a while, but we never moved to Washington. We live here. You know where College Park and Research Forest is, where the Burger King, McDonald's, Bombing Dance Studio, everyone knows where that is. You know, back behind there in Clover Park is where we live. So I just get on a plane and commute to Washington each week, and we've been doing that now. This is my 17th year. So we figured out that I'm just finishing my 4th round trip to the moon. Flying back. Yeah, you know, we figured that out for a Boy Scout troop, but I was so impressed by it, I keep reminding everyone. So forgive me for that. But we did that to make sure we stayed close to the communities in the neighborhoods we represent. You know, my fear has always been, you know, if you move, think about moving 1,200 miles away, but still wanting to be running College Park High School. You know, being on the team or being in the honors side where you say, well, wait a minute, you moved what? So we stay here a lot of time in the airports, unfortunately, a lot of time. But we wanted to raise our voice here. We wanted to stay grounded to our communities. So I continue to commute there. Also, College Park, we love having students come up each year to visit. And then 2 years ago, it's hard to believe in this body, but I actually still play baseball in Washington, D.C. And since 1909, they have a congressional baseball game between Republicans and the Democrats. Hard to believe, huh? Yeah, and we play at National Stadium, about 8,000 to 9,000 people there. Raise a lot of money for local reading programs in the schools in Washington, all that. But 2 years ago, I had the asked for Coach Washburn to have the privilege of wearing College Park's uniform. And I play second base, captain of the team, cleanup hitter. Didn't have a good game wearing the uniform. Let me just say. Anyway, we'll get better. So anyway, I want to make sure this time works well for you guys. You know, I brought a few, just thinking about preparing for this visit. You know, in my mind, most of the struggles we're having in Washington today is about you guys, not about us. Because most problems are not short-term, they're long-term. The debt. We're living way beyond our means as a country, and so that debt's piling up. Somebody's going to pay it back. If we don't start living with our means, that comes down on you guys. I mean, it's as if your parents run up big credit cards, and when you finish college, they say, here, feel free to pay them off. Well, you say, well, wait a minute, that's your job to do that. Well, the government's sort of running that way as well. The economy, we're doing great in Texas, but we're struggling in too many parts of the country. And some economists now fear that our economic growth as a country is going to slow permanently. And what that means, called the growth gap. And what that means is that when it gets time for you guys to start looking for that job so you can start living your dream, there'll be 1/3 fewer job openings for you when it comes time to look for a job. And so we're fighting hard on economic issues. And finally, 2 programs you don't think much about today, Social Security and Medicaid. You don't think about it much because you got a long time before you're going to need. Social Security is a retirement plan to keep people out of poverty. Medicare is a health care plan to make sure you can see local doctors. But both of them are going broke fast. Parts of Social Security go bankrupt in 4 years. All of Medicare goes bankrupt in now 11 years, maybe a little less. And so for both your grandparents today that are counting on it, and the fact we're already, I don't know, how many of you work? Some? Yeah. The government's already taking money out of your paycheck and telling you when it comes time, you need health care later on, when it's time to retire, need some help, That way the money will be there for you. But if we don't change and reform them for you, we're taking your money and we're never going to pay it back, which is a promise that is just wrong. So most of our issues up there are all about you guys. I forget what we put on for slides. Let's run. Maybe I can show you these. That's just what I do. This is the budget. And a lot of focus is on defense and in other parts, non-defense. And that would be like highway funding, air traffic controllers, border security, help for veterans, health care is all in there. But look, most of our budget is really about this program, Social Security, retirement, Medicaid, health care for very poor folks, as well as nursing homes. Then what we owe on our debt. So this part is all on autopilot. It's just growing and growing and growing. In fact, every day, 10,000 seniors sign up for Social Security and Medicare. They did today, they will on Monday, they will on Tuesday, they will on Thursday. So all these folks are flowing into here, and guess who they expect to pay for all that? Yeah, you guys, which is why we've got to change our ways. You didn't know? Here's our future if we don't change our ways. Red is the debt we're amassing as a nation. Green is the revenue coming in. You can tell, you know, the last 7 years, there's ups and downs. For the most part, it levels out about 19% of our economy. We raise in taxes on people. But look where our spending is going as a country. I mean, it almost never stops. And to put this in real perspective, what all this red ink means is that a baby born today in Conroe Regional or St. Luke's on the corner, they already owe, their share of the government debt is already about $50,000. So a baby born today in the Woodlands owes Uncle Sam a new Lexus. If we don't change our spending, by the time they're 13 years old and they're over at Knox, they'll owe a second Lexus. And by the time they're 22 and they're finishing at UT or A&M or Rice or wherever it is, getting ready to start their life, they'll owe the government a third Lexus. Now, the good news is young people don't buy luxury cars for Washington, but you pay the price a different way. With all this debt, you've got much higher taxes. The economy slows down, so there's fewer jobs for you. And your interest rates, what it takes to borrow to buy a car or a house or anything else, goes up a lot. So the price you pay is that when it comes time to launch your life, there'll be fewer jobs for you. You'll keep less of what you earn. Well, that's not fair to you guys. It's not fair. So we've got to get control of our spending now. We've got to change that curve in the future. Just think about it. After you finish college, maybe go on and get a master's or a doctorate, you get into your life, you work 40 or 50 years, great job, great family, great life. You retire about here or so. Think, all this debt, you guys have to pay during that life. Here's another chart. Hopefully we can change it. Yeah, you just passed a budget in the House that changes that course. And it's not dramatic, but what I like about it is it changes the course and it doesn't just balance the budget, just live within our means. Our goal is to have a debt-free future for America. And literally, where our country doesn't owe a dime to anybody. And you don't owe a dime in public debt. So that when you earn that money, yeah, there'll be a government support, there'll be defense, there'll be research for medical, life-saving medical devices, need to pay for roads and airports, that we get. But on top of that, you won't have a big bill that your parents and grandparents ran up on. So you keep more of what you earn, and you have more. So our goal is actually, over time, a debt-free future for you guys. That's really one of our biggest challenges. What's next? I'm being surprised by this. So this is the new healthcare law that goes into effect end of this year. Here are the patients. Here are the physicians. In between 159 new federal agencies and bureaucracies. People have different views about how they feel about the president's new law. I don't think this was the right solution because it puts government so much more intrusively into people's lives and it actually drives up the cost of health care. But that all starts October 1st is when It really kicks in a big way. Some of it's already started big time October 1st. It's going to have a big impact on your lives. The way you get health care will differ a whole lot from the way we've gotten health care in the past. Thanks. Talk about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. This is the money that comes from the federal government. You can tell the way these programs are growing, in not too distant future, it eats up every dollar. That's my point. Those programs just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you're going to have to pay more and more and more taxes out of your paycheck just to pay for those programs. That's why we got to get, again, it's really more about you guys than anything else. What else do we have? Same thing, just different shot. Same thing, different shot. We're on Facebook. The reason we live back home here is to stay in touch with those we work for. That means you. We also spend a lot of time, I do more than 50 town hall meetings a year because we want to hold ourselves accountable. The people won't always agree with what you vote on, you know, or your position, but you want to make sure they have a chance to tell you that. So we do a lot of town hall meetings. We do telephone town hall meetings. We call into people's homes for those who can't get out at night or just have busy lives. Facebook, Twitter, we've got a blog, we've got e-newsletter, all that stuff. I encourage you to come to our website and sign up, stay engaged, tell me what you're thinking. I think Jordan Little was the first one who tweeted about this. Yeah. Yes. So we appreciate that. So keep doing that. So why don't I stop with your permission? Can we stop? Can we just stop and just take questions, comments, issues I need to be working on, anything like that? Yes, sir.
On that graph that you looked at earlier, where you have the projected for the current path.
Yeah. Can you go back to that?
What is it? Oh yeah, the path is plus there. What you take a look at a bill over this path that I was formed in green track. What was in that bill?
Yeah, this is what it does. We just passed it yesterday by just by happenstance out of the House. Senate has their own budget, but the goal was to start living within our, it balances within 10 years, balances the budget within 10 years. It still seems like a long time, but we're so far out of whack right now, we think that's the right time to do it, sooner if we do. It repeals the massive health care law, replaces it with a plan more targeted to how we can afford health care, make it less expensive, give you more choices. We start those first steps, taking the first steps on Medicare and Social Security to save them for every generation. The way we do it is basically we keep everything the way it is today for those who are either in Medicare and Social Security or will be over the next 10 years. So for people planning to go into it, everything stays the same. But for younger workers, we're going to give you a different group of choices than seniors have today, so that you can actually choose. You can keep Medicare if you want it, but you can choose a health care plan, maybe the one you have at work that you like, and maybe another one that you choose. So rather than a one-size-fits-all here, take the plan we give you, which Washington does a lot, you'll have a wide variety of choices, and then you'll get help paying the premium. So we made some changes along those lines because we actually think you're the key to getting health care costs under control. You can't do it out of Washington. Whenever we say to the doctor, don't do that surgery, don't do that treatment, hospital don't pay for that, it hurts people. But if you're informed and knowledgeable and can make choices, which your generation is going to do that, you can actually choose the best value of health care for yourself without Washington choosing it and lower the cost over time. So you're the informed generation of healthcare users we dream about. And so part of my goal, I took over healthcare for the House this year. I did lead on international trade for many years. I moved over to take healthcare because this is such a critical year for the country. And one of my key goals is in healthcare to help create a generation of informed healthcare users who have more choices, who decide, have more control over your healthcare through your life. At the end of the day, pick a plan that's right for you. You can take people work. You can take from state to state. You can take home if you want to raise a family. You can start a business in your garage and take the health care plan with you there. Even keep it throughout your retirement if you want. So, you know, and on Social Security, I want to give young people the option of taking some of what they pay out of your paycheck and put it in a retirement fund with others, a lot of others. You pool your retirement funds, let them grow over time. A retirement plan that you own, I mean, that's yours, not the government's. And I sort of dream of the day that when it's time for you to retire, you don't go to the government and ask for your retirement back. You take your plan to your financial advisor because it's yours. So I've sort of got some bigger dreams for you guys than we've had for other generations, because I just think you're capable of handling some of the choices and decisions for your life. Long answer to a short question, but those are big, those are complicated issues. We've got to get it right as we tackle these things. But at the end of the day, if we do all that in these budgets, we can get Republicans and Democrats working together. What used to be an impossible dream, that we could have a country without debt, doesn't look so impossible.
What's the name of this bill that was passed?
It's the Path to Prosperity. We passed it yesterday. It's on our website and Facebook page if you want to go to.
I also was looking at some of the work you've done. What was the Sound Dollar Act?
Yeah, you know, the Federal Reserve
Yes.
is the institution America created 100 years ago to handle the currency of America, how much money was floating around our country. Well, over the years, they've done some very good things, but they played a critical role in helping create a financial problem in the country. They did a very good job sort of stabilizing the patient. But since that crisis is over, they've just been printing money at a huge pace and buying America's own debt. And as a result, what happens, two things happen. One, the value of the dollar goes down. So what you can purchase with every dollar you earn gets smaller and smaller and smaller. The other thing is, over time, it's going to create inflation, where, you know, the books you buy one year are going to be 6, 8, 10% higher than next year. Same book, just inflation drives it. And inflation really steals from your paycheck, in my view. It steals from what you earn. And so I want the Sound Dollar Act reforms the Federal Reserve. It really focuses it back on protecting the purchasing power of our dollar. You know, so what's worth $1 today when you graduate from here will be worth $1 10, 20, 30 years from now. Rather than, and I think when I graduated from high school, that dollar now is worth about 18 cents. And it really eats away the way you earn. And so it focuses that, it opens up the Fed, makes it more transparent and open, makes sure the entire economy is voting on some of those decisions. So it's pretty significant reform. But I think for you, if we just protect the power of the dollar over time, our economy grows, really in a great way it grows. So that's what I want for you guys, just a stronger future. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Back to like the graph that went all over the place, looked like a circuit board kind of thing.
Obama.
You said you didn't agree with it. Would you, with like what y'all did, would you make it like a shorter route or like a different route? Just kind of different.
Yeah, what we did was we took it in steps. This is a comprehensive answer. So they tried to do a whole lot of things with just a huge bill. And the way we did this chart, by the way, on the Joint Economic Committee, because when it passed, no one had read the bill. So I had my economists and staff who spent 4 months, evenings and weekends, reading through every provision over 2,800 pages. I said, put it on a chart so I can see how it works. So America can see how it works. And actually, what's sad is I can actually explain this chart. That's pathetic, really. But, and what's even more worrisome is that we can only fit 1/3 of all the new agencies on the chart. You know, so actually, on some of these tricolored things, If you're on a computer and you punched into them, it'd go down and open up like 18 or 20 new programs.
Okay.
So this got added on top of healthcare we have today. Our idea was step by step, and the first step was lower the cost of healthcare. Because for families, and if you're running a small business, that's what kills you. It's just the cost of it. So we focused on cost. We wanted choices so you could buy, just like you buy, iPads from around the country, whoever can. We wanted the same choices for healthcare. You could buy any plan in any state if it fit what you wanted. Or we did lawsuit reform so we can get the doctors sort of out of the lawyers out of the examining room. That lowers costs. And then we created in each state a subsidized way to help people who've already got like a cancer or diabetes or something they can't get health care. They've got to have it. I mean, if you've got chronic illness and try to buy health care, it was impossible. So ours was much smaller, and then we really listened to the experts down at the Texas Medical Center who said, boy, healthcare is so too complex to do it wrong. Take it step by step and start with get the cost in. So, ours was just a different approach. People feel strongly about, obviously the president feels very strongly about the law and tends to fight hard to keep it. It's the law of the land now. It's just not in place. So this next year, through October 1 and January 1st, it's going to be a huge, just a rush of new red tape out of Washington. So it'll be fascinating. But all this rush changes the way you get help. It's hard to know exactly how it's going to all pan out over time. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I've seen in other countries they have much higher taxes and they give free Medicare, but then their debt is way down. So I know conservatives are usually not like gung-ho about raising taxes. But
Usually not. Yeah. Most countries with high taxes have a very, very large government and provide a lot of services. America historically has taken the opposite. We push a lot of power down to the states and to families, because that's just how we were founded. So traditionally, we've had a fairly, I wouldn't say tiny, but I would say compared to our other global competitors, with sophisticated economies like ours has been relatively small. 19 to 20% of our economy is devoted to the federal government. In Europe, it's dramatically bigger than that. It can be 40 and 50% of their entire economy is their national government. And so our philosophy has been to keep the size of government relatively small so that the rest of the economy can grow even more. And I think this chart probably, you get a bonus for running that computer. You can tell when our economy gets back, our revenue will bounce back all the way through. There's no question about it. Look, there's no way you can create high enough taxes to pay for all this. I mean, this year, last year, the year before, we could double everyone's taxes in America. I mean, literally everybody, poor, middle, we still wouldn't balance the budget. So our belief is the best way to balance the budget, start paying off the debt, is grow the economy, because that really generates a lot of revenue. New tax breaks, and then restrain your spending. So sort of grow the economy, restrain spending, and you meet in the middle of that. So that's our philosophy and how we, and why we do it. In our philosophically, our belief is that the larger government grows, the fewer decisions you make, the fewer freedoms you sort of have, both to succeed and make mistakes. So not everyone agrees with that philosophy. And there's honest, good people who just disagree with all that. But one of the reasons I wanted to jump at coming today was, I'm hopeful out of this class, every one of you will someday, some way, raise your hand and get engaged, whether it's running for office or finding something you believe in, or getting involved in your community. I mean, you're the best and brightest we need helping make some of these decisions. Are you crying about my answer? Thank you. Don't put that out, Jordan Little. More questions? Yes, sir.
Totally similar topic. In other countries, even the cost of healthcare is more subsidized, but even when comparing unsubsidized costs of healthcare, America's healthcare costs are still significantly greater. I'm just wondering what, besides removing red tape and bureaucracy, what else could be done to bring costs down?
Yeah.
Would it be like regulating prices, or?
I think it's the opposite, but you're exactly right. It's our biggest challenge in healthcare is, especially over the last 30 years, our healthcare costs have gone on up and up and up. I mean, dramatically faster and higher than any of our other competitors around the world. But the quality actually hasn't gotten very good compared to that. In some cases, we're paying twice as much for less quality. And so that's got to change. And most of the people in medicine that I talk to, except researchers, but everyone else says our problem isn't the amount of money in healthcare, it's how we spend it. And I think there's two solutions to that. One is the government reimburses about half of all healthcare in America. We literally decide what we'll pay your doctor in your hospital and the sports medicine person who sees you or whatever. And as a result, we're not very good at doing that. And so we create a whole lot of inefficiency in the system. So one, the government drives up costs. But two, the other answer is today, most average Americans in healthcare, have to only ask two questions. What's my deductible and what's my copay? That's basically what we ask ourselves. We've got to create, I talked about the new generation, you guys. We've got to create a system that's open, where you can pick a plan that works for you in whatever point in life, where you can choose, you can compare hospitals, you can compare doctors, you can compare the cost of this kind of imaging, a CAT scan here, an MRI here, and decide the best value for you, not for the government, but for you. I'm convinced that rather than having Washington tell you what's good in healthcare, if we give you the choices and we pull back that curtain, because no one knows what healthcare costs. And there's 4 or 5 prices for everything. We need, like the Wizard of Oz, we need to pull back the curtain on the man back there, allow you the opportunity to shop and compare and buy quality and look at consumers, find out how other people rate that doctor, that hospital, that surgeon, whatever, so you can make those choices. I actually think we can't ever get both quality care, which is good care, and affordable care, do both of them, unless we create a new generation of informed consumers. I don't think Washington can do that. In fact, I absolutely will tell you, the government can't do both. They can do one. They can do quality, or they can do affordability, but you can't get both unless we get you guys involved. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It'll happen over time. It will not happen overnight, but I'm absolutely convinced we can't get there unless we have a new generation. Yes, Alan, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well over here. You've been in Washington a long time, and I was just wondering if over that time you've seen the tension between parties grow or get less?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. It's been, here was the golden moment, 90 days after the terrible attacks of 9/11. Between September 11th and New Year's Day, we worked together. I mean, it really was sort of amazing how well we worked together. We all went home for Christmas and New Year's, came back, started, you know what I mean, the conflicts. I actually think right now, the partisanship isn't so bitter up there. It's been a lot worse than this right now. The difference is today, there's 2 different visions of where the country ought to go. I mean, respectfully held visions, Venus and Mars, of what the government ought to look like, what they ought to do for you, how big it ought to be, just dramatically different visions. The visions between my ideas in healthcare and those ideas in healthcare, for example. So it really isn't bitterly partisan. It's just two different philosophies, you know? They're really, really different from each other, and there's been very little middle ground. That's been one of the frustrating parts. I mean, makes sense?
Yes.
This,
This is kind of like the same thing, but it's no question that there's a struggle with compromise in Washington.
yeah.
So what's your like viewpoint on trying to get the job done, but also like politicians, they kind of work hard to get reelected, and then sometimes like,
Generally so.
yeah, so they kind of like work really hard to get reelected to work for us.
You know, I think I've not, honestly, there's been a few, but I haven't met too many people up there who aren't trying to do the right thing. I mean, they may have a different, completely different view. They grew up differently. They represent a different part of America. You know, their views are just shaped differently. They're all trying to make a difference. You know, and there's been a few that I don't know how or why they're up there, but for the most part, it's a pretty small group. I think the answer is to insist that our Constitution work. Here's what I mean. The way the Constitution works is the House is supposed to pass its idea on how to solve health care, or how to improve education. The Senate is supposed to pass their idea. It doesn't have to be the Senate, just pass it. We meet, we have a conference committee and work out the difference, then we both vote on it. Right? We have not been doing that for a number of years. In fact, it's all been either like one party that has control of everything, or now it's divided. So maybe it'll be just a couple people negotiating with a couple people. And as you can tell right now, America's not happy with that. You know, that play's been losing for a couple of years. The way, the compromises that I think have been the best, and I'm a conservative, you know, and so the compromises and agreements that I think have been best is when the House and the Senate pass different plans, we work it out, and come back with a solution. Generally, it's been a pretty good solution. Maybe not everything I want, but a pretty good step forward. So I think the answer is, you guys ought to insist that the Constitution works up there. And everyone does their job now, not 2 years from now, after election. You know, do it now. Hold us accountable on Facebook and social media, all that. Keep the pressure on. If we do that, I think we can get some things done. Does that seem simple, or?
I have a like a different view. Well, I mean, like, I feel like you know how like Greece is, like, you know about Greece and all that. They kind of elected a dude who said what they wanted, and they did that, but that's where they ended up now. You know, so like people, they try to get elected where they say stuff, and because some people believe what they say.
Yeah, we'll have to do to promise exactly, what the people want to hear. But I'll just tell you this, and I say this in every town hall meeting we hold. All the easy votes are done. If we really want to solve these issues, they're going to be hard. I tell all my folks, prepare to not be happy with them. Because do the right thing, so we change the course of the country over time. To save Social Security, Medicare, we're going to have to make some unpopular choices. And so I've tried for some time to prepare the people I work for, constituents, that I'm not always going to be. I can't, if we're going to get this job. Yes, sir.
In light of some of the things that you were just saying, what do you think over the next couple of years are some things that the House can pass and the Senate can also?
You know, I think we can take some baby steps on safety, Social Security, Medicare over the long haul. You know, and again, Democrats don't have to agree with all of our ideas, but there's some that everyone knows has to be done. Social Security, everyone knows over the next 35 to 40 years, we gradually have to raise the age from 67 to 70. Everyone knows. And everyone knows that we've got to tie checks people get to the cost of living rather than wages. We do those two things. we save it for you guys. I actually save it for your kids if we do that. So we can take some baby steps, same in Medicare, that actually starts to change the curve. That actually starts to change the curve on Medicare like this, Medicaid like that, Social Security, I think we can stay, keep it level over time. But yeah, the trick though is to act now. Don't wait longer, because as you know, the longer you put off the problem, the longer you put off the paper, the longer you put off the project, usually the worse it gets. Same thing up there. So if we'll act now over the next couple of years, it doesn't have to be huge steps, just important ones. Together, we could actually do some good. I don't know if it'll happen, but I think it's possible. Allie.
Hi again. Question on
You
education.
still doing okay?
So, when we were walking up here, you mentioned how you served on the Texas legislature. And over the past couple of years, there's been a big budget cut in education spending, and I was just wondering why education got cut.
And I think you'd probably be better asking Representative Steve Toth, the new representative from here, or Brandon Creighton from Conroe, or Senator Tommy Williams, because they were there for all this, or at least Senator Williams and Representative Creighton were. Part of their challenge has been at the state level, Medicaid is starting to squeeze out everything else. When I was in the state legislature, it wasn't back then, but it was about 2% of the budget. Now it's a quarter of the Texas budget, growing bigger. It's squeezing out available money for everything else. So I think when they took a look at, where do we spend our money and where do we have to make the cuts, education is the next biggest part of the state budget. There's my guess is that's where they had to go to. My understanding is that they're starting to put some money back. I saw an article this week that they were adding 1.2 billion back. Anyway, they're better equipped to answer that than I am. But just from my experience, healthcare for the poor and nursing home coverage is squeezing out in many states money that we used to have for a lot of other. Excuse me.
Hi.
You're not going to start crying again, are you?
The last two elections, I know, since there was sort of two big losses on the Republican side, I know that you guys will have to sort of change the party's outlook on some things. What do you think changes?
Well, I think Republicans have lost nationwide 5 of the last 6 popular votes. So if you've lost 5 of your last 6 games, are you thinking you'll do the same thing again, or probably make some changes? Our belief is we ought to make some changes, not in our principles or beliefs, but what's become clear is that minorities don't believe we care at all about them. It's clear young people don't think we're connected at all with you. Single women and moms feel equally disconnected, that we just don't really care about. And so even the message, what we're talking about today, how do we live within our means? How do we solve these problems? They're not interested in it because we don't look like we care about it. It's not fair. I think that's wrong. We do, but something clearly is getting in the way of that. Even having this conversation, and so there's a lot of just visiting now as Republicans about how do we open up so we can have more conversations with the people we're actually trying to fight to save programs for over time or keep debt from landing on them. Right now, there's roadblocks. So, you have any suggestions?
I would just obviously look at something. The Latino vote is so big. I don't know. But
my impression is that African Americans vote 90% against Republicans. Hispanic vote is getting up to that point, not quite much, 70%. Here's what's interesting: Asian Americans share a very strong work ethic as well. As look at every group, Anglo, African American, Hispanic, there's a strong work ethic, believe in family, believe in country and opportunity. But they're voting against Republicans 80 or 90% too. That tells me there is no conversation. You know, there's not even a chance to talk about things we're not sharing about. So, yeah, we're gonna have to rethink. Yes, sir.
Do you think George P. Bush had the opportunity to revitalize the Hispanic vote for the Republican Party in the next few years?
Well, he's really, I don't know if you ever get a chance to meet him, but he's really sharp, bright, young, hardworking, just got, you know, great background. I'm hoping we can bring him to Montgomery County, you know, so, you know, more of the community can meet him. But yeah, I think, you know, I think it's important to hear a message from those that you connect with, you know, that you see yourself in. And so, yeah, I think that helps. I think he has that potential. What do you think? I'm thinking that's not yes.
It'll take more than that, in my opinion.
Thank you. It will take more than that.
You've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, because right now most of us are dealing with like financial aid for college.
Yeah.
Is there any like legislation out there that's working to improve how that whole process is done?
Well, to a degree, but the federal government really doesn't have a lot to do with college costs. We do two things. We help finance it for families through the Pell Grants, low-cost loans. We have tax deductions when we pay them off on time. So one big role for us in Washington is to help finance college. The second role is we do a lot of the research and development, send the money down so universities can help us, you know, new life-saving breakthroughs in medicine, for example, and other research. Those are our two big roles. States really control college. Yeah, like 99% of college they control. Our big worry is that the cost has gone up and up and up and up. And so now it's critical you get that college. I mean, literally, it's worth at least $1 million more from high school to the college degree. You'll earn easily more than $1 million more just by going to college. An advanced degree in an innovation part of our culture, in science, math, engineering, technology, and a lot of service areas and entrepreneurship and all that, even more than that. And so it's just critical, but it's really, I don't have the chart here, but I've got a chart that shows over the last couple of decades, credit card debt, home debt, personal debt, and college debt. It's just crazy straight up. And so I don't want to control from Washington our colleges. I hope our states can find ways to keep those costs. Is that?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is there any big steps being taken in Washington to promote energy efficiency?
Yeah, there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of mandates on using higher mileage automobiles, better efficient consumer goods. Buy a refrigerator or anything these days and you can track, you know what I mean, exactly how much you'll pay that year. There's tax incentives for energy efficiency as well. Buildings like this, over the last 3 decades, buildings have become like 70% more efficient. It's crazy how successful they've become in those areas. And so yeah, there's some pretty good incentives there as well. And now, of course, we have this game-changing opportunity. Talk about your generation. With all the new oil shale, all the new energy, America could be the largest energy producer in the world. You would never have to spend your life worrying about whether the Middle East turns the spigot on or off. You know, you'd actually have more control over your energy lives than any generation of Americans ever. So we got to make sure we encourage that. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Kind of snowballing on that, what is your view on using our own resources as energy, as like petroleum in Alaska or whatnot?
I think we ought to. One, because it creates an awful lot of jobs. Two, you're not held hostage to Middle East countries or countries that hate you. You know, you can turn the spigot off. Then finally, affordable energy is driving a bunch of manufacturing jobs back to America. Jobs that left our country, they just couldn't afford to build here. Now they're coming back in droves because energy makes them, natural gas is so affordable. So you create whole new industries out of just getting energy affordable and reliable again. So yeah, I think, again, well, you guys can have a whole different and better life and energy than anyone before.
And making that stuff cheaper, do you think it would cause the economy to go up in different areas, such as automobiles, the prices of automobiles going down as gas prices go down?
It generally helps across the board because oil and natural gas isn't anything we're sitting on and walking on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sitting in today. So yeah, it really has a big impact. Of course, for Texas, our region, you know, we're the energy capital of the country, if not the world, and it's a quarter of our economy already, continuing to drive. And what I like about it is it creates jobs for everybody. From someone who had to drop out of school in 8th grade to help their family, you know, to someone who gets an advanced degree and top-of-the-line researcher. Energy creates jobs for everybody. You know what I mean? Good paying jobs that really aren't available in many places, many other industries. So I like it from that standpoint. It really gives a lot of economic freedom. Yes, ma'am.
You've been talking about the big issues right now, and you've been hearing what we're saying. Is there anything that strikes you as like the next big issue if you hear from your constituents?
Well, we have 9 counties. They start sort of in North Houston, like the new ExxonMobil location. You see all those cranes at, and over to Village Creek, and then around near Tomball. And it goes up about halfway to Dallas. It used to go into East Texas from Orange up to Toledo Bend. So always have a broad, I have a lot of different communities, so we get a lot of different ideas and views. The main issues they always ask about are spending and the debt. They're worried about Social Security, Medicare, and the economy as well. Immigration, border security are key issues that they ask about a lot. Those are the big ones as well. So, is there anything we need to add on our plate as we're looking at this?
Not for me. I was just wondering if there was anything that.
Yeah, you know, one of the big concerns is lately is America changing to the point where there's more people who receive government help than pay the taxes. There's a worry about that growing to the point where fewer and fewer people will shoulder the load for everybody. But that doesn't need to happen. I'm convinced if we can get the economy going again, we can make some changes, really get more people back to work. That doesn't happen. Yes, we had a hand up here earlier. Did you have your hand up?
This isn't a policy question, but did you always want to be a politician? How did you start?
No, I did not. I never dreamed it. I grew up in a town in South Dakota, Rapid City, South Dakota, near Mount Rushmore area. And I grew up there. After I went to college, was in Chamber of Commerce work there. I would go to school at SMU in the summers. So I was invited down to run the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce. And over here to South Dakota County, Woodlands area, which I worked here for 11 and a half years. No, I never thought of being in elected office. In high school, my dad, when I was 12, my dad was killed in a courtroom shooting. He was an attorney helping out a family. Unfortunately, one of the gentlemen threatened his life, and when the trial began, he followed through and killed my dad and killed his wife, shot the judge. It was a long time ago when things like that didn't happen much. So it really changed the trajectory of our life. Good news is my mom raised 5 of us by herself, and she had us involved in everything. I mean, she was very taught us to be independent, taught us to give back to the community, to be optimistic about life. And so everything I am, I really owe to my mom, but she got us so involved in the community. So Boy Scouts and sports, and church. I was student body president in high school. Played 4 sports as well. Did the same thing in college. Was really involved. So Chamber of Commerce work got me involved in helping give back to the community. And so that led naturally, you know, to service, government service. In my opinion, and I'll stop here so I don't keep people look like a lecture, but everyone's got an organization chart in their head. Some people in public office have the people here and they're up here. And the higher they go in office, the higher they get. In my head, it's just the opposite. You're here and I'm below you. Literally. I'm elected to be below you and serve, help lift you up, provide opportunities for you. And the higher I go in office, all that means I have a bigger responsibility to help lift up more people. And if you take that attitude, boy, public service is great. You know what I mean? If you always know that I'm below you, my job is to serve, help provide opportunities for you. If you do that, you can make a big difference. You don't worry so much about the elections. You know, they tend to take care of themselves. You can make a big difference in public office, whether you ever intended to or not. But I really, and I'll say this again, really, we are counting on you guys to be involved. We've got to have fresh thinking, new minds, and folks who want to think outside the box, innovate to solve these problems. We're going to need you to do it.
I have an economics question for you. Ever since 2008, with the recession, the growing trend is globally that Eastern Asian countries led by China are taking a bigger share of the world economy and international trade. Do you think the Western Europe, led by the U.S., can recover that global balance, or we're going to be behind further and further as the years go?
Yeah, economists tell us today we're going to grow farther behind our global competitors, but that's only on the current course. This is the weakest recovery since 2008, since World War II. I mean, we're way behind where we should be at this point. That doesn't mean we have to stay way behind. If we make some changes, we can boost this economy, get back into that. The other thing is energy. We talked about energy. That makes us much more competitive in manufacturing, in services, which would be, you know, healthcare, insurance, financial services, technology services, entertainment services, accounting, all that. We have a huge surplus around the world. So we're spending, when I led the international trade effort, we were just sort of tearing down barriers and kicking in doors around the world to allow our American workers and companies to compete. When we do, we really do well. And so if we'll make the changes to boost the economy, keep energy moving, and keep kicking down those doors, no, those predictions of us continuing to lose more and more not have to come true. Tell you what, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. In order to balance the federal budget, it seems like we need to cut back some mandatory spending. So, yeah. In your opinion, what part of mandatory spending?
On Social Security, it's got to be raising that age over time and tying your checks to true cost of living. That really does solve it. Although I still want to see that option where you can put some money aside, pool it with others, and grow your own savings account. That solves that problem. Medicare, as I said, the biggest change there, besides getting the fraud out of that system, I mean, there's a lot of fraud in Medicare, has got to be giving younger workers a broader range of choices, more competition, that lowers the cost of Medicare. So those don't seem like dramatic changes. In Washington, they seem like, oh my God, who would do that? But rather than cut what we pay doctors, cut what we pay hospitals, cut what seniors have for programs, I'll introduce competition and choice and open pricing. I think that's a smarter way to do it. What do you think?
I have no idea.
Good answer. Yes, sir.
What do you think
insurance companies, but this might go against your view as the size of government, but have a single payer private provider.
Yeah, it does, and here's why. I don't think you get the best quality care, lowest cost without competition. And if you have just the government as a single payer, you don't really have competition. Here's an example. 20 years ago, when people first started having eye surgery, it was $10,000 an eye or more. Now we're in about the 6th generation. It can be $2,000 an eye for LASIK or the latest generation. And that happened because people competed for your business. You know what I mean? And so they create better healthcare for lower and lower costs over time. I actually think that will, in you having the choice to choose that best healthcare, just like in that case, but imagine that through all of healthcare. I actually think that's where you win as a consumer, taxpayers win because we're not spending as much. It takes a long time to put it in place. That's not that we're not doing. Just this month. Let's take one or two more. I don't want to keep you guys at beautiful Fridays.
Even though technologies are making it so that there are more ways for humans to improve standard of living, it also increases the opportunities for people to use the Medicare system to use the technologies to get better. And it says, I should have thought. Technologies are developing technology in healthcare is good, but new technologies also come with a heavy price. Whenever you ask to say, oh, can I get treatment for some sickness that the treatment was just recently developed. How would you say that has affected the increase in Medicare costs?
You're probably 1 out of 1,000 Americans who just identified one of our key challenges. Over time, technology is going to lower the cost of health. Right now, it drives it up in a big way. Plus, because it's expensive, and the way we reimburse in Washington, we reward the doctor for ordering you 3 tests rather than 1. Even if you just need it. Defensive medicine, not being sued, probably drives them to a 2nd test. And so, the system isn't very good that way. Over time, technology is going to work for us, and that's where I'll come back if it's value to you. Not to us if it's value to you. You've got to create a system where you're making those value choices. The other thing is, there's so much fraud. Technology can be a huge help. Look, every day you open the newspaper, go online around here, you'll read about multi-million-dollar frauds in healthcare. I mean, they're just ripping you off right and left. Most of them are seniors. What's frustrating is because we're the government, we don't apply technology. So here's a great example. I was in Pennsylvania a couple months ago. I stopped at a convenience store to get a Diet Coke. When I'm walking to get into my rental car, my wife calls me and says, "Did you just buy something in Pennsylvania?" I said, "Yeah," because her Chase Visa card had just emailed her and said, "Hey, someone's buying something with your car in Pennsylvania." The same week, I'm here, I open up the newspaper, and we're busting a physician for Medicare who's made claims of 170 treatments on one patient in 1 year. It took us years to identify that. And my thought is, wait a minute, how can my wife know I bought a Diet Coke in Pennsylvania? But it took us years to find a doctor who claimed he operated on me 170 times last year. Technology can be applied to actually help us save a lot of money in healthcare. It is, you're exactly right. And even a lot of lawmakers don't understand the point you just made.
Some of you guys have questions, but I'd like to take the time now to thank Congressman Brady for coming today. I really enjoyed the speech and truly appreciate everything you do for our country.
Well, keep all the social media, and two, we're always, you know, we make appointments and nominations to West Point and Naval Academy, or other, you know, just great educational opportunities if you've got an interest there. Or that someday you want to intern in Washington, either in our office or some other committees or some other areas, let us know, because we'd love to try to plug you in. Thank you again very much.